tell them what about Terry Funk and and Don the Lawman Slatton in Abilene, Texas, having your brother meet the governor of Texas.
And Harley was in on this thing too, and so anyway,
why would they mess with your brother? He's like the baddest man on the planet. He's like that age is Kurt Angle.
It's probably the only rib that was ever played on Jack in all of his years in the business, and it was played perfectly. I mean, it was so perfect. Jack was so pissed. It was unbelievable. And he called me after he met the governor and said, I just met, of course, the governor of Texas' name was Dolph Brisco, but with an E, you know. And so Jack had the title, and Slatton wanted him to stay over and do an interview for him. And Jack wanted to, of course, get on the airplane and had to get the hell out of Texas and come back to Florida. And who wouldn't want to get the hell out of Texas? You did too. So anyway,
Brisco, that's not.
So
nice.
they come up with this. They come up with this great plan. So the Jack had always talked about, you know, the governor being named Brisco. You know, ribbing Terry and ribbing all those Texans. You know about, you know, you got to have a governor by the name of Brisco. It's got to be an Okie in there somewhere. So Jack was getting ready to get on the plane, and Terry was dropping him off, or Slatton was dropping him off at the airport. He said, Jack, you've always talked about the governor. And he said, he's coming into town to do a interview, which it was in the paper where Governor Brisco was coming into I think it was Lubbock or one of those towns that Slatton promoted. And he said, do you want to meet him? Jack said, of course I do. And Don said, well, I'll change your flight. It's only like 2 hours different, you know, and so we'll still get you home tonight. Jack said, as long as you'll get me home tonight, I'd love to meet the governor. So they took Jack away from the airport. He was already at the airport. They took him, and Jack was telling me a story, and he said, they got to go to this ranch where this big Texas rancher was having a big meet and greet with Governor Brisco as a fundraiser. So they drove for about a half hour. Jack said, where the hell is it? Oh, it's just right down the street there. And about that time, here comes 3 limousines the other direction, headed back towards Amarillo. And so Jack said, well, that's got to be the governor. Let me turn around and catch the car there. Now, Slatton makes a U-turn. Terry's in a car with Jack, and so they make a U-turn. They pull up next to this car and they honk and wave, and so the procession pulls over. There's 3 limos, Jack told me. They all pull over. So this guy gets out, and he looks just like Governor Brisco, white-haired, you know, and distinguished-looking Texan, you know, and all this stuff. And Jack goes up to him then, and Terry starts telling me the story from there, because Jack said, yeah, I met the governor, blah, 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 you know, when he called me. So Jack meeting the governor, oh, it's what an honor, you know, going through all the protocols you go through, what kind of honor it was to meet the governor of Texas, you know, him being a humble Oklahoman, you know. And so the guy's playing the role perfectly and everything. So, and the governor said, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Brisco, it was great meeting you, but I've got a meeting up the road in Amarillo with the mayor, and I can't be late for it. And Jack said, well, it was a pleasure meeting. I got to catch the airplane anyway. Get back in the car, they take off. So nobody tells Jack. They put Jack on an airplane. So Jack is proud as punch, and he got to meet the governor of Texas, Dolph Brisco. He called me, he called my mom, he called my sister, he calls everybody in the family. I met the governor Brisco. He says he's related to us, and then his family just added an E on the end of it to kind of make it look a little bit different. And so, oh, great. So about 2 weeks later, Jack's still not in on the rib. We're in St. Louis, and St. Louis, and Jack is working with Harley. Back in the old St. Louis days, they had a class system dressing rooms. I was fortunate enough to go to Jack with my brother. I was fortunate enough to dress with the champion. they had all the ex-champions in there. They had the Funks in there, Race was in there, I was in there, Jack was in there. So Jack goes and talks to Sam. Sam wants to talk to Jack. So Dory and Harley come over to me, and Terry come over to me and said, "Did you hear about your brother meeting the governor?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Boy, he was really honored." And they both started chuckling. All of them started. I said, "Why? What's so funny?" He said, "That was a friend of ours. That was a used car salesman. We had him dressed up as the governor. Your brother don't know about it, and we're afraid to tell him. I mean, they're scared to death to tell him." And Terry, he said, "Would you tell him?" I said, "Do you want me to tell him?" And Harley looked at me. He said, "Please don't tell him tonight. I got to work with it." And of course, I couldn't wait to tell Jack after that. So I go out and I'm standing there by Sam's office when Jack comes out. And I see Harley and I see the Funks peeking out of Jack's dressing room there. And I said, "Jack, come back here. I got to tell you something." So I walked back into the dressing room. Harley and the Funks go over in the corner. I said, "You know what, Governor Brisco you met?" And he said, "Yeah." And I'm watching the threesome over in the corner there. And they're all, I said, "He wasn't the governor." "What do you mean he wasn't the governor?" And now Jack gets bright red when he gets mad. I mean, just bright red, like when you grab his hair. He gets bright red. He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "He's a used car salesman from Amarillo. He's a friend of Don Slatton's. And he's posing as the governor, and they set the whole thing up with limousines and everything, and it was a big rib." And Harley comes, as soon as I said it was a big rib, Harley comes running out of that threesome. "Jack, I swear I didn't have a thing to do with it. I promise you I didn't have a thing." Harley was scared to death. Jack was going to get mad at him thinking because he was over in the corner with the Funk. And all of a sudden, Jack just looked, "Terry, you son of a bitch, I'm gonna get even with you one down the line." Now Terry's scared to death. I'm working with Terry, I think, that night in the match. And so Junior is the only one that don't have to worry anything that night. And Junior came over late. "You didn't tell him I had anything to do with it, did you?" I said, "No, I just told him the Funk. So it could have been your dad." And I said, "Dory, it could have been any one of the three of you guys," because they were all big ribbers. And so Jack and Harley go out and they have the match, and all through the match, Jack told me, Harley kept saying, "Jack, I didn't have a thing to do with it. I promise you, I didn't have a thing to." He said, "That's all he talked about. He didn't care about spots. He didn't care about time. He didn't care about nothing. Just all he cared about, Jack was kicking his ass that night." But I really think that was the only rib that was ever played on my brother. And to me, it's one of the all-time classic ribs. I mean, on anybody, let alone a world champion. You just didn't rib the world champion, especially when he's a badass like Jack Brisco.
Absolutely, yeah. He was the modern day. He was back then Ken Shamrock. I mean, he was our Haku. He was the guy nobody could beat up.
He's a guy nobody messed with. Nobody pulled his hair when he didn't want him to.
Was Don Slatton the promoter? Don Slatton was from Abilene, Texas, right? That's where he's based out of, right?
He was out of Abilene. He was actually a sheriff in that county there. And you're a great historian, John, and I'm sure you remember the name Billy Saul Estes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He was a crook Texan, like all the Texans. He was a crook. I think he embezzled some money and
went to the pit,
tried to buy some votes or whatever it was. He was an embezzler.
We don't cheat in Texas. Ask the Houston Astros. We don't cheat.
Yeah. We just kicked your butt, by the way, too.
We don't need to talk about.
So anyway, that's Don was the one who arrested Billy Saul Estes. That's where he got his really claim to fame in that part of Texas. He was the one that arrested Billy Saul Estes. And it was by sheer accident. He was patrolling one day and a car comes speeding by. And so he takes off after the car and he pulls the car over and the driver gives him his driver's license, as lawman. That was his nickname, the lawman, Don Slatton, the lawman, Don Slatton. That's what it went by his professional name. The lawman looked over and he said, "Hey, that guy looks familiar over there." And it's just a friend of mine. So he goes back and he pulls up some stuff on their police thing. And sure enough, it's Billy Saul Estes. And he goes up, "Sir, I'm going to have to put you under arrest." So that was Slatton's claim to fame, and that's how he become promoter there in Lubbock, or Amarillo, or Abilene, or whatever. They're all the same, all those towns. In West Texas, you know, they are Sweetwater, No Water, Waxahachie's the only town that really stands out there.
Killer Tim Brooks was from Waxahachie.
So was Dickie Murdoch.
Oh, Dickie Murdoch. I love Dickie Murdoch. I used to ride the roads with Dickie Murdoch. He would say, he and Dusty wrote a song that was "Take Me Drunk, I'm Home." That was the song. It was the worst thing you ever heard in your life. It was he said it was by Six Pack Productions, and he would sing it over and over and over.
I've heard it a million times.
Dick would never let me drive.